it feels like there's so many people in the community that are just literally one bad thing away from just completely giving up on life. Like you'll have a couple of bad kills in lane, which in of itself is like not a thing that is worth quitting a game over, right? Like you can totally come back and they're just done. They literally just give up. Like they either AFK, they're super toxic or whatever. And that was not something that was around when like I was playing to a large degree. This is the thing that surprised me, and I learned this when I went into esports. This doesn't get better in Challenger. That's what's actually crazy. You would think that once you get to like a certain high level, that the players are going to be like reasonable and like trying hard and shit like that. And like maybe this is just like a problem in like bronze or silver or whatever. It's not. Like in Challenger and in very high levels, it's actually as bad, if not worse. It's like fucking crazy.
2019 season 9. It actually did get worse. I used to say last year that this is like the worst state the league has been in a long time. And season 10, the last like 5 months of trying to play this game all day and stream it all the time, I have had absolutely the most miserable, worst experience of my life. And I'm not the only one. I've talked to a lot of streamers, a lot of pros.
How do you solve it? I mean, the idea that something is insurmountable is not a reason to try to not solve it, right? So, for example, it is not possible that we ever solve all of the problems on Twitch of like people streaming content that shouldn't be on the website, right? But it is important that we make a concentrated effort to try to stem it. And Riot is like very clearly doing nothing at all. There's not a very large percentage of players. Like at the very least, you could fix high elo. There's not a very large percentage of players that are like beyond diamond, right? It's like less than 5% of the player base. And you could police that. And then you can go down from there. But like Riot doesn't care. Also, I don't know about you guys, but I was a pretty big fan of the Tribunal. People have so many accounts, you need something more active than a Tribunal. Well, first of all, you need something. So it's like, this is the thing, right? It's like if we're trying to solve a problem, and like, yeah, that doesn't solve the problem entirely, but it does a lot more. You can IP ban, and there's a lot of options.
Of people saying, well, you can't fix the community. It's just, some bad seeds. Like there's nothing that can be done. That's escaping the issue. That's shifting the blame. That's not how we should approach things.
It's weird to me that there's a lot of people that are in chat that are like, oh, like, yeah, the Tribunal wouldn't solve the issue, or like we shouldn't like there's like, just because you can't solve the problem in like one swing doesn't mean you shouldn't try to solve the problem. Like if we implement a problem that gets like 20% there, then we're 20% further to solving the problem than we were, right? That's important. I'm going to give a different take,
though.
That
is literally my life, my passion, my blood, and so many other people I know out there that are watching this or agree.
So I'm going to take like, I guess like I haven't really heard many people say this. I guess because they don't, well, okay, I know why they don't want to say this. Is because they're attached to League of Legends and esports in some way, right? So they don't want to give this take. There is no monetary incentive for Riot to fix this problem, which is why they're not fixing it, right? So the majority of the money that Riot makes is from a small percentage of the player base that they know is going to play no matter what, and buys the most amount of skins and buys the most amount of resources and shit like that. If Riot implements systems that police the player base and ban people, it's very likely that a percentage of those toxic players are also a percentage of their largest buyers. So unfortunately, that means that they may be banning people who are large revenue sources. And so because of that, they are not going to do that, right? And I think the sort of elephant in this room is that Riot is not fixing... Riot would rather have a toxic community than they would have a healthy community, because the revenue is higher, right? Because if you really wanted to fix this problem, you would create rewards, real rewards, right? Not like the honor system, but real rewards that actually reward players for doing good things. So if you had something like the Tribunal, right, and then you gave people that participated in the Tribunal like an exclusive skin, or you gave them some kind of incentive, or I mean, there are a million different things you could give somebody, right? Like a banner, or like one of those custom things, right? For whatever reason, they don't want to create a system where people that are positive and people that are not toxic, they don't want to create a system where those people stand aside or look different from the people that are not that are toxic. And the only reason I can guess why that is because my guess is that toxic people are probably correlated with the people that are their biggest revenue generators. So if you ban 5 or 10% of the player base, I don't know what percentage it is, right? It's got to be a very significant percentage, though, because so many people that play League of Legends on a regular basis are seeing this almost every game. So, like, I think 5 to 10, and these are, like, again, like, people know me, I'm very data-driven. So what I'm saying, but we can't be data-driven in this subject because this is highly anecdotal. So I think that 5 to 10% is reasonable. That's a very anecdotal, it's a guess. It's a hypothesis, right? I've been in League of Legends a long time. I was on the esports side. I talked to a lot of players. So that percentage of players getting banned, having a high correlation to like very unlocked, like large unlocked accounts, and then being banned and not spending money on League of Legends has to be a reason why this is not happening. Because I think a lot of players are doing the right thing, and I think that Voyboy is absolutely doing the right thing by coming out and saying, look, there's a huge problem here. This is super brave of him to do as a person who makes his entire livelihood on League of Legends. But I think we have to look at why Riot isn't fixing this problem, right? And Riot's not fixing this problem because this isn't like a new thing, right? Like Riot has had a problem with toxicity for years, and I do agree that it's growing, but it's something that at this point is like ridiculous. And so Riot has like built these systems, like there was the Tribunal is the one that I remember, and they just sort of closed them down and they call it a failure. But a combination of the Tribunal and human resources can at least make a big step, and you can also fix the high ELO, right? Which I think has an enormous effect on the community. So I would say, like, if you wanted to do anything, right? If you could do anything, why not fix high ELO first? Which is like, okay, you have 1% to 5% of the player base that's playing in Challenger, Masters, and Diamond, and then you police that with human resources. So for people in chat, what does this affect, right? Why does this matter? The big difference it makes is that streamers, which have a lot of influence over people, right? They start having healthy games. And then the perception drives the culture. Because if Voyboy doesn't get into a game every time where somebody ints or griefs, then the culture starts to get driven by that. It doesn't fix the problem, but you start at high ELO, you start, and then the other thing you do is you have this kind of like low tolerance policy of very toxic streamers as well, and you advocate that this is something that we aren't okay with doing. But I feel like so much of Riot's resources are going to be focused on developing Valorant that unfortunately this toxicity problem is just like gonna get ignored because there doesn't seem to be a financial incentive to Riot fixing this problem, and there might be financial I don't know if decentive is a word, right? There might be financial reasons why not to do it, and that's just unfortunate because this is like a huge issue for a lot of pro players, and I can speak from personal experience when I tell you that this is like a significant factor in a lot of people's mental health, where it's like them having to deal with, holy shit, you making your livelihood off these games, and then you're just like waiting 20 minutes for a game at high ELO only to queue in with a guy that follows you around and like plays some bullshit role and then completely messes with you as a result of it. That is a very stressful thing. And I think one of the biggest mental health like struggles we have in esports is in the League of Legends and the MOBA scene because of this. And what's sad too is like, I don't know if you guys could see it in this video, but man, like Voyboy is like, he is genuinely distressed. And like, there are other streamers I know that I've had conversations with offline, and they're so messed up as a result of like this problem. But Riot, yeah. I mean, just the frame that we paused on, and it makes me upset too because like League of Legends, and like people are gonna cap me on this, but like League of Legends is like legit one of the best games ever to be made, and it would be such a better game if its community was reasonable, because the community is like really what brings down the game more than anything. If the community was super healthy and solid, and you had solid games, it would really be an amazing game. It would really be an amazing game. It'd be so good. But it's just not. It's not in the cards because it's like the game really gets pulled down to its community. And to some extent, MOBAs have always had this problem. I mean, I played Heroes of New Earth. For whatever reason, like in Warcraft 3, the original Dota that just came off of the custom maps was okay. And like this toxicity started to happen when there was standalone MOBAs, and I don't really know why that is. Heroes of New Earth was like one of the most toxic communities ever to exist. It was insane. But people on Warcraft 3 were chill. It was whatever. But I hate to see a lot of these players that are just like they're so down on the game because the community is just getting that toxic. And toxicity on Heroes of New Earth was a pretty significant factor in what like blew up the game. I think the thing about League of Legends is that this is just going to keep going on because I don't think Riot is likely to fix it. Again, like my hypothesis is that there is some financial reason why they're not doing it. Because if they thought that, so here's the way that I always think like a company thinks, right? If they thought that player retention or more people buying stuff was related to positivity and a not toxic community, why would they not incentivize that? Right? They've had the game long enough that they know those numbers. So my suspicion is that a large percentage of the toxic people are also the people that are buying a lot of shit. That's the only way that shakes out. Because if that wasn't the case, then and positivity like added to player retention, then that would shake out and they would do that. So that's not the case. But Riot makes other decisions, like we're not going to have voice chat. So I don't know. It's an interesting problem. But I don't see the disadvantage of enforcing this on the top 5 to 10% of players, and then the outward facing community, which is those are all the people that stream, right? So I don't see why bringing that down on the top 10% of players is not like a net positive in every single way, and why they just can't be fucked to do that. Is the problem consistent across all regions? Yes. Yeah. Korea is really bad. EU is really bad, though probably not as bad as NA in Korea. And then the other regions I don't know. But you would think that like Korea was not that bad, but Korea is like super, super bad. Do you think that the just mute them answer to voice chasticity is reasonable? No, I actually hate that answer for everything. Like, I think putting the onus, that's like telling that we had that discussion yesterday, right? We were talking about women in gaming, and somebody said Pokey should just mute the people that are calling her a bitch and threatening to rape her in Valorant chat. That is a super, super bad suggestion, right? That's an escapist argument. Like, we have a core problem with our community that's happening that has to be addressed. Muting, like putting the onus on the individual to mute somebody is not the way to address a widespread problem, right? It's like, that's like you have a COVID pandemic and you're telling individuals, hey, just feel better. It's like, no, like we need to address the entire problem as an objective whole, right? We need to tell people to wear masks. We need to social distance, right? Like, you have to solve the problem at a systemic level. You can't just like tell people to solve the problem as if the onus was on them, like it's their fault, right? You can't do that for anything. That's not a solution to any problem. We have to solve it at a systemic level. That's where it has to be addressed. Especially, by the way, for people that make their living off of this shit. Like Voyboy, this guy lives and breathes League of Legends. It's his job to do this, right? We can't have him like close to like a fucking mental breakdown because of what's happening in at his job. That's ridiculous, right? Like the solution for Voyboy is not to just mute someone when somebody is following him as AP Graves and killing his minions. What do you think the best solution is? I think so to be clear, I think the best incentive, and I don't really know. I mean, well, I'm only semi-qualified to cover this, right? In the sense that, like, I understand how people are motivated based on marketing, and I understand a bit about League of Legends, but ultimately this is like a problem I don't have like full context into. The way that I would solve it is I would provide some system of rewards for positivity. And I would give players that are showing positive behavior or a tribunal type system enforcing negative behavior, helping enforce with negative behavior. I would give them some sort of like good reward system, whether it be optional, like skins that nobody else can get, or banners or whatever, something like that. And again, the tribunal system did this. If people remember it, the tribunal system was this, and I think the tribunal system was really good. And I think the tribunal system combined with selective enforcement at a high elo would start to make a huge difference in this, because just the change